Well, welcome, Steven Berkoff and Stephen Cookson. Yes, thank you. We're here today at Horrific, the film festival, celebrating one of your films today is going to be shown here at the festival. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This is the Martin Talk Show, where my aim is to amplify the voices of change makers. Whether that be in film, theatre, the arts, community, creativity, whatever that may be. So like I say, we're here today to celebrate one of your films, Ella, getting all tongue-tied now, Edgar Allan Poe's Tall Tale Hearts, but Steven Berkoff's interpretation. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this was filmed a while ago now. This isn't a new film out.
Yeah, we did it some years ago, didn't we? About 5 years ago.
I think more than 5.
More than 5.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
maybe 55.
We're talking pre-COVID then.
Yeah, I think so. It was. Yes.
And so this is Steven Berkoff's version of this story. What I haven't seen the film myself, so tell me a little bit about this story.
Well, it's about a man who's obsessed, and he is a victim of his obsessions to the extent that his life has no meaning without somehow dealing with them and trying to, in some best he can, to cure them. It's like a sickness. It's very close to the sickness today that people have, which they call obsessive compulsive disorder. And so it's a man who suffers from an acute, over-enhanced perception of hearing, taste, sight, smell, and so this would be the worst possible talents or gifts if you're going to commit a crime, because everything around you will be heightened. So he commits a crime of killing, and then he goes over it in his mind, and he feels that everything is there to torment him, and he can hear things in the night which are quite shocking. But his super sensitive hearing was one of the terrible gifts or faults he has, as he kills the man who is his victim. He imagines, he hears his heart beating so hard, and that remains in his brain. And then eventually he does away with this man and buries him under the floorboards. And then the police knock on the door because a neighbour has reported hearing a scream. So he's totally impervious to the police. What can they do? Go to the police. So the police come to his home and he talks to them. And he feels very, almost too assured, too confident, too happy that he has defeated the forces of law and everybody. And as he's talking, he suddenly hears the heartbeat, which he heard so strongly during the killing. And he hears the heartbeat beating through the floorboards. And he said he can't believe this is going on, can't believe this is happening. But it does, and so he tries to distract himself by speaking quicker and faster and louder, but the heartbeat continues. And he looks at the police, and he's sure that the police can hear him, can hear the heartbeat. And suddenly he can take no more. And he looks at the police and can see that they're listening, although they can't hear a thing, naturally. And but he imagines that they are. And then he suddenly confesses and says, "It is here. It is the beating of his horrible heart, and surrenders. So that's what happens when you have too high a level of any particular talent, whether hearing, seeing, smelling, touch. It can end up being your greatest persecutor. So that's basically the story.
And so what drew you to this classic, this story then? What is it that appealed
Nothing
to you?
drew me to it at all. Nothing, and I wasn't drawn to it. I just was looking for something to do. And what is, if anything, it draws me, is that the author, Edgar Allan Poe, has an almost hallucinatory talent, and he has an imagination that's totally surpasses any common playwright. And so his imagery is also superb, the language is superb, and he delves into the soul of the man. So one can't help but be incredibly attached and in some way galvanized by it, and also challenged. So, well, you have our writers in England, they're all very good, but they're also realistic and practical. And it's very honest, straightforward, telling the truth, giving a good insight. But you see, people like Poe, they are fantasists. They use symbols, they use ideas which take you so much further. So that's what attracted me to him.
Did Edgar Allan Poe inspire you, coming away from the film slightly here, with your own personal writing? I'm immediately going back to some of the plays of yours that I've seen over the years, and it sounds a little bit like you may have been inspired.
Not a bit,
No, not at all.
No, I didn't really get to Poe, in a way, till much later. I started writing many, many years before I liked Poe. But I liked Kafka, first of all. And he was a total brilliant fantasist, and using his imagination to create images and situations which are mind-boggling. So I wanted to do another piece, like of a surrealistic nature, and then I thought, well, the Telltale Heart would be a good piece because it's such a satanic story. But what really maybe got me into Poe was The Fall of the House of Usher, which I think is a superb piece, can be well adapted. And
Recently adapted on Netflix.
Pardon?
Netflix recently made a series, The Fall of the House of Usher.
A series?
A series, yes. It's very good. Yeah, it's an eight or 9 part piece,
Really?
and it's superb, superbly acted, put together, brilliant piece of cinema. Even
Okay.
on Netflix, can we call cinema Netflix? I guess a brilliant piece of TV.
Well, it'd be difficult to imagine that they could do it. They might put together something that's vaguely adventurous and a bit sordid or sexy even. But I challenge anyone to do and understand what it's about. And it's about something they couldn't even come near.
What do you think makes it so difficult then, that imagination, that tapping into the insight that you can read off the page and translating it into film? What is so difficult but moving one
What's
to the other?
difficult is that it requires you to think symbolically. These stories they're parables, they're allegories. And whoever's done it, Netflix, they wouldn't have an effing clue in hell what it means. They would just see, oh, it's a haunted house. Oh, the man is going on a horseback through the moors, or he wouldn't understand what the whole thing is about. So I'll have a look at it, but have you seen it?
No, I haven't. That's why I can't comment. But I know it's a very long series, so I think it's quite drawn out. You know, I think they took the seed of the House of Usher,
Yes.
as Stephen says, using the characters and the location, and they've kind of just expanded it into this whole new story, which I don't think bears much resemblance to the original. But that's the way I interpreted how they've done it.
So how did you interpret with your film Edgar Allan Poe then? How did you take the symbolism and the imagination and transfer that?
Well, I mean, Stephen has very cleverly already done Telltale Heart as a show, as a theatre performance, which I'd seen and I thought was absolutely terrific. So that immediately drew me to the project, and then obviously the reason why we've called it Steven Berkoff's Telltale Heart is because, as everybody knows, the poem is very short, and Stephen brilliantly found a way of extending this into sort of 85 minutes or whatever the film is. So obviously with my work as well, but it comes down to Stephen's performance, which is why we've called it this.
And I wonder if, like you say, there was a theatre piece first, if theatre kind of bridged the gap between the two?
Well, not for me, because I'm a film director.
Okay.
I don't direct theatre. So for me, I just saw the potential of what Stephen had done and then got really excited about it visually.
And for you, Stephen, so you're big in the world of theatre as well. And so did that work for you in that way? Did you see a gap between the two that it helped cross?
What do you mean gap?
So going straight from the page, if you went straight from the page and you went straight into film, would it have been harder to translate? But you've gone from the page to theatre, then into film with this story.
Really,
Did it help with the
stories told in
interpretation?
different ways. One's told through the use of the word and actors. One's told through writing and reading. One's through seeing and film. So I don't think there's any gap. But The Fall of the House of Usher is clever in that he defines basic story is. His definition of a human is what he is attached to, what he lives for, what he craves, and that it's all interconnected. And so Roderick Usher lives in this house, huge mansion, and the house is decaying. It's corrupt. It's gradually sinking into the tarn, which is a gigantic lake or moat. And this crack is perceived from the roof going all the way down the building, right into the tarn. Now that's symbolic. Means Roderick Usher, he has a crack in his mind. His mind is somehow been altered and thwarted and corrupted by his senses. So he, in a way, represents the house and lives through the house and is described in a very practical way by Poe as a man who can only eat the blandest foods, can only listen to the very most delicate music, can only touch on his body the very finest materials and silks, because he can't bear anything that's too abrasive, intense. And so he's living almost like, if you like a raw wound, or like a person who has been skinned. And so everything is affected by his physical condition, which makes it interesting, fascinating to play and to think about. And so we see him in his house, and he knows he's going to die. And his sister is his long companion, I think called Madeline. And he has the one servant, Oswald. And they're a bit too isolated, and the sister's rather lonely. And she says, oh, it would be nice to have someone come to visit like in the old days. We had friends and even parties and champagne and music. So he said, there is someone I can call. He writes to his friend, come and visit us. The friend receives his letter, begging him to, just for the last time, make this journey. And so the friend comes, and then we see through the friend's eyes who tells the story. So the friend becomes like the narrator to tell how horrible he finds the situation of Usher. And so we see him going through life and waiting for the time that his sister will die, but making it more curious. He knows his sister suffers with catatonic fits. So you know what a catatonic fit is? You don't know?
What is it?
It means you have a fit which paralyzes the nerves and the muscle. So you're like this, and it looks as if you're dead, but you're breathing very shallowly. It appears as if you're dead. So she has one of these fits. The friend is there, but she looks like she is dead. So Roderick Usher says, oh dear, poor Madeline, she has passed on, but she's alive. Mm. So he asks his friend to help him carry her into the vaults, down into the dungeon. When they put her in the dungeon and lock the door. Then he goes up to his room and they pass the time playing the violin, reading occasional poems. But underneath all this sound, he hears her scratching the walls to get out. She can't believe he's put her there. And so you hear her with her nails scratching at the walls. And meanwhile, this is what he wanted, I think. Mm. So that he would hear this, his last satisfaction with his sister, who's obviously got on his nerves. And he couldn't wait to get rid of her, I think. But somehow she manages to sum up some superhuman strength. And as she keeps tearing at the walls, over and over again. She makes a fissure and she gets out and climbs up the stairs. Meanwhile, Roderick Usher's just there, but he knows she's coming. And she comes into the room and she just stretches out her hands, puts them round his throat and squeezes his pathetic throat until she kills him. And on the point of killing him, the house also collapses because they're in symbiosis together. The house crumbles and gradually crashes into the tarn along with Usher. So that's would make a remarkable film.
Mm. Well, that was a remarkable piece of storytelling right there. Thank you, Stephen. I feel quite privileged to sit in that moment. Actually, it goes to show what a remarkable storyteller you are.
Thank you. It's a wonderful story.
Mm. And you know that we could have just had a little chat there about Edgar Allan Poe, but you told a wonderful story there. It wasn't a performance, but it almost was.
Yeah, well,
the story there, and I guess that's what these things should be, shouldn't they?
Yes.
So what's coming back to the festival that we have here then at Horrific? How does it feel for both of you to be here and have a film that you made 5 or 6 years ago still being celebrated in this way?
Well, we mentioned that earlier on. It is nice. I mean, obviously, we all want our work to be seen, and especially now with everything being streamed, it's even more unusual to get a film to be shown in a cinema. So, we're very flattered, and it's great that there is still interest in it, and hopefully, it will continue to be shown in the years to come.
Is that similar for yourself, Stephen? Do you enjoy coming to events like this?
No. These events, I don't know if I have enough language left from memories going, but these events are the most blood-curdling and somehow loathsome experience of going into these bastard kind of suburbs of London. The horror of your cafes, the disgusting state of the building, the filthy carpets in the lift, the customers. Oh, the horror, the horror. Nothing could be worse than to put a piece of art into such a place. But there's nothing you can do, I suppose. You have to put up with it.
And hopefully people will enjoy the movie.
The very sound, Romford, the sound induces a certain nausea in the back of the throat. Romford is more than horrific. It's somehow, it squeezes the very infernal depths of your worst suffering.
So where would you like for your art to be seen then? If not in Romford, not here at a film festival, how would you like your art to be celebrated?
It has to be in a place which suits it. I mean, if it's a lyrical, delicate, beautiful kind of poem of some kind, let it be shown in a beautiful theatre space somewhere in Soho, in London, in the West End, Mayfair, somewhere. But to go in that cab to Romford and see it, going to this building which was so horrendous. And when my friend said, "Where is the cinema?" and a Neanderthal woman said, "I don't know. Don't think we got one here." That was my poor impersonation. But this creature, which seems to be dragged out of the infernal guts of the devil. I think there's a cinema in Romford, yeah. No, Chelmsford, yeah, I think. Eventually, my director came back and said, "I believe it's just round here." And then we found it and had some food which looked very suspicious. Oof. But I know I'll get over this. Once I'm home and I'll have a good wash, a mental bath, think clearly, do some writing to somehow scour.
Well, can you take anything from an experience like this that may not be enjoyable to you and put it into some of your writing?
We were thinking, my esteemed colleague said maybe you could write about Romford, and I would think they would be interested to make a film about our conception of hell.
And Romford could be the location for that.
That is what inspires you. You go in, you see this filthy cinema. You see the torn, filthy carpets. You see the rubbish on the floor. You see somehow the deadness, the sadness.
Have you any idea, Stephen, in your years of experience, then how we can change that? How we can change these type of places that I personally, and I think you guys too. I love the cinema, and you're both involved with cinema. I can tell
I
that
love
you love cinema.
Yes.
So how can we bring these places back to life? Because this is happening all over the place.
It's the city we're talking about, not the miserable cinema.
But I wonder if the cinema is part of the core of the community. It was for me growing up. The cinema for me was core of the community, and if we can bring these places back to life, then maybe that can trickle through.
I think there are a lot of new cinemas and refurbished cinemas around the country. I think just homing in on Romford, it maybe needs a bit more investment. You know,
Yes.
the cinema here, obviously, as you were explaining earlier, hasn't been open for a while. So I think that this particular area in cinema needs a bit of investment.
Yes, and I believe that's what they're doing. They are looking to get investment in this cinema at the moment and rebrand it, and they're trying to make this into a community venue, and they're seeking funding at the moment to do that, which is good.
I mean, I don't think Stephen came to this, but I went to Southend Film Festival with another film I did, and that was again a great festival. I mean, it's quite a small seaside town, but you know, had a nice cinema and a great turnout, and it was a good vibe. You know, so some of these provincial festivals are worth going to, and others
you show?
Brighton.
You showed you had the courage to show that thing.
Yes, with Phil Davis.
Tell me more about Brighton then. So Brighton's one of your movies then.
Well, it came from one of Stephen's excellent plays called Brighton Beach Scumbags, which we talked about, and Stephen performed for me at one point. We went out for dinner and he did a brilliant performance of all these wonderful characters. And this was after we'd worked together on Telltale Heart and Shakespeare's Heroes and Villains. And I just thought it would make a great film, but it was a bit short. So I had to do my best to slightly extend it with some flashbacks, which is what the end film ends up being. And we got Larry Lamb, Phil Davis, Leslie Sharp and Marianne Bailey to be in it. So we got a nice cast, and this is a film we made a few years ago.
Wonderful. So you two have a bit of a relationship with making these movies, and it's not just a one-off thing.
We've worked together a few times.
Where did that start?
Well, it started with this, didn't it? I think this was Telltale
of course.
Heart was our first collaboration,
Yeah.
and you know, it was enjoyable. It was a tough shoot, but all films are tough. Steve was under a lot of pressure, you know, playing the lead in this thing, and then we decided to do Shakespeare's Heroes and Villains, which is another one of Stephen's, you know, works, which was quite simple for me because it was really just Stephen doing his Shakespeare characters and talking about various subjects. And then we talked about doing another film, and that's how Brighton came about. So.
And so what works in this creative relationship between the two of you?
Well, I totally respect Stephen's work. So for me, it's just not changing any of his text. And I think perhaps other people he's worked with before try to wreck his good work, and there's just no point because it's perfect in my eyes. So, and I think, I don't know, Stephen could say, I think he respects me, what I do, and I set up the cameras and get the money and make it happen. And but my pledge is to not alter the dialogue that Stephen's written.
Have you found that difficult then in the past, Stephen, when other people have got hold of your work?
Oh, no.
And not done it, say, justice, not done it how you would
I haven't had
imagine?
many people do it. Because my work is much more surrealistic and symbolic, it doesn't appeal to the moronic mind of the average film director, because they want something that's a bit real, you know, with real guns and real shagging and real. So mine is much more, it alludes to reality. And so I haven't had many people. I have maybe had one or two. Oh, yes, there's a play of mine called West, and can't remember the name of the director. He was very good, and he directed it for Channel 4, and he brilliantly adapted it so that everything that was surreal or symbolic on the stage, he managed to use that quite incredibly and did well. I'm sorry I can't credit him with his name at the moment, but the film was made, that was a long time ago, when Channel 4 was more or less setting up. And it was, I think it was in, there was a film studio, I think called Limehouse Productions. And he used all the stage actors just as they were. And it was a remarkable film. So I haven't had that many problems with people who didn't change a word. Though I did an adaptation of Kafka's Metamorphosis. Excuse me. And I did have somebody...
Should we take a pause? Would you like me to get you some water?
Please.
We'll take a pause.
It was quite
Thank
worrying
you.
when the woman said, "There's no cinema here."
Is this the correct?
Yeah. Do you need to go to Chelmsford? We were like, "Whoa, we just got here." So.
Yeah, I think locally that this place. I don't live local here myself. I've just come here for this.
Yeah.
But I've been here for another film festival before, and I know. Yeah, like I say, I know they're trying to revamp this place and turn it into something new.
Yeah. Well, they should. I mean, it's a good position right in the centre of Romford.
Yes. Yeah.
Why not?
Could turn it into something.
What would be the ideal thing to turn this into then?
Concentration camp.
So what's next for you guys then? What are you looking to? Is there something on the cards? We've talked about House of Usher. Is that turning into something from here, or is there something that you're working on at the moment?
Well, we've because obviously we're friends and we do meet quite regularly. We are always talking about new collaborations from Metamorphosis to the House of Usher. But as everybody knows, it's very difficult to raise the money. And if something's just been done, they say like Netflix are doing House of Usher, Metamorphosis I think was also recently been done. It's just about timing. I mean, the thing about the 3 films we have done, it was just the right timing. There was interest to put the finance in. We could get the actors. Stephen was available, and all the stars aligned. Mm-hmm. So I think for us, we're just always thinking about and looking at new projects. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm involved in another. I did Arthur's Whiskey last year, which I directed with Diane Keaton, and I'm now going to do another comedy with another big actress. So that's my plan this year.
Mm-hmm. And what about yourself, Stephen?
I'm doing a bit of writing. I'm trying to write autobiography, which I'm working on, and I'm finishing that off. And I'm just toying with a TV series based on Victorian underworld of Irish gangsters living in London. And the man's name was Houlihan, which sounded like hooligan. So this is a common word now in our language. And I never realized there was a man whose name gave the world that signature to describe a villain. And so it's the most fascinating story because it discusses how terribly sad and depressing the world was in the Victorian times and the hunger. So it starts with Ireland. And the most dreadful story I've ever read is that they were starving to death in Ireland, and that over a period of 3 years or 4, over 1 million men, women and children starved to death.
Is this the potato famine?
That started with the potato famine because they got infected by a disease, so they couldn't grow the potato for many years. And then the poor people, they lived on potatoes because the Irish were very poor and they would just eat anything that was digestible. And they couldn't really grow very much because they didn't have enough land, because the English farmers stole all the land from the Irish. Mm-hmm. And when they gave bits back, they were just little bits. And they were given to the family in small portions, which was not, you need a certain amount of land and acreage to grow sprouts and onions and tomatoes and pears and apples. You need areas of land, and they didn't have enough. So they couldn't grow much. But the English, also suffering from the potato famine, but less severely, insisted that the Irish export all their food as much as they could to England, which made the situation so bad that they died by the thousand every day. So much they had to leave, and they went to America, 1 million of them, and many came to London. So our story takes us to when this Irishman hooligan visits London and how he's going to satisfy himself by purging his anger and hatred out on the English, who are causing so many Irish people to die. So that's all I'm working on at the moment. We're just...
Is this a piece of film or
No, it's
theatre?
kind of a series. So it's partly political, partly dramatic, partly poetic, partly abstract, partly like a history, if you like, of the nations and of the people. And so that's what we're doing. So we hope. And then I'm working with Steve on the actual structure, because Steve knows the technical parts of what we call final edit, because I don't know how to use machinery. I don't know. I see all these buttons. I think, what the fuck, all these buttons, and you've got to press a button so that the letters don't go over the page. And what the buttons? I think, Jesus Christ, you can die before you learn how to use a fucking computer.
But like you said earlier, it's good the way we're working on this, because you're saying the dialogue, aren't you, and seeing if it works, and I'm giving you comments, and so I'm just helping Stephen get it down.
Yeah, we've as human beings, we've all got different skills in different areas, haven't we?
Yeah,
and your thing isn't computers, Stephen, is it? And and one person's thing is a different person's, and I guess that's where your collaborative relationships working.
Taking us here, yeah.
Well, before I wrap this up, one last question and place that I'd like to go to with both of you, being established filmmakers and storytellers, is that where the industry kind of is with filmmaking at the moment. We're in this little moment where AI is coming in, and AI is this big concern at the moment. What do you two make of that?
Well, it's a very wide subject, isn't it? And I think in what context? I mean, I've been using AI for sort of putting synopsises together, for example, and trying ideas out. I think that's quite helpful. So in that sense, it's good. I've also used it for sort of do little teaser trailers, and things that I've shot to just put something together very quickly, generically, and see how that works. So for me, for small projects and testing things, it's quite helpful. I think when you come to the big things like making a film, I still think it needs the human touch. So, I'm working with actors, real writers, real producers. And I think that that's the way it will remain for the moment.
Yeah, and I hope so too. I hope that that it doesn't take over in any way. And I don't think as human beings we want it to. I think when we go to see a film, we want to see a film that's been made by other people, that's not just been made out of an algorithm.
And I think the audience can tell as well. At the moment they can. Who knows where it will be in 10 years? But at the moment, I think it's quite helpful.
And is there any concern there for you, Stephen, with storytelling for future storytellers?
Concern about what?
That it's going to take. Some people are concerned that it's going to take away from human creativity, from writers cheating their way into the film making or theatre, writing scripts through putting in a few questions into the computer.
Well, I think it's a fascinating idea that we have evolved somehow a form of humanized robot. Now, we're not shy about inventing and creating robots. In Japan, they have robots that can speak, answer questions, cook you an omelette, play music. Most of all, they have robots that are linguists. So they can communicate with you, say what language, you press a button, Chinese. Another button, Japanese. Another button could be Hebrew. So you have all the Languages, 10, 50. It's all in a disc. So this robot, wherever you go to any restaurant, whether it's Italian, French, Yugoslav, whatever, Greek, he would order for you, what do we have? And he will say, well, it depends. And the robot will adapt itself to your temperament. And if your temperament or your class or your aspirations are towards, the Mayfair set, the robot will be very accommodating. And if you're, say, middle class, it might be just very simple. And okay, if you're working class, you will do that. Or if all that. So that's nice to have a robot that speaks to you like that. Oh, you fucking look at that, bollocks. You said, no, don't, you've got the wrong button. Beep, sorry.
But how would you feel if AI, and this is one of the big concerns right now, AI taking writers' work and changing it, adapting it into new ways, and companies are profiting from this? How would you feel if AI took some of your plays
couldn't give a fuck? Well, let them take. Have them fun. That they exist. They're in their present format and are protected forever. They're there almost for eternity. They can last as long as the human race lasts, for another few million years. So if some little mechanical, robotic, what's the word for it? Not jism or whatever, that's another thing. Some robotic little toy, it can do that. But, well, let him use the language, might create something more interesting. It might adapt it, might make it into perfect verse, might get the perfect rhythms. Who knows?
I mean, what it might do for some of Stephen's stuff, particularly Brighton Breach Scumbags, is to take out the Cockney, which obviously would be ridiculous, because the whole point is Stephen's written it in Cockney way, because that's the point of the thing. But a computer would probably, standardise it all into RP, which would then be ridiculous. So,
and it wouldn't fit the story.
And it wouldn't fit the story
the purpose of
the purpose of even writing it. That's right. So I feel with AI, it just does a phrase a different way. It's no longer right or wrong. It's just different. That's the way I think it will be. Probably it's not better. Well,
yes, I don't think there's panic of thousands of writers and actors sending letters to the Times, saying, "Oh, this is a most dreadful, heinous attack on our personal creativity," and it's always the same name, and that's Stephen Fry and one or two others, always there. Don't know how he has the time to sign all these things, because he's always signing everything.
I guess there's a financial worry there. I guess the plagiarism thing, and these companies that control AI making profit from your work, whether that's as a writer or a filmmaker, or even your image as well.
Well, that's not good. I mean, I think, if they was to use my image or Stephen's image, and then Stephen doesn't benefit from it, or Stephen's estate doesn't benefit from it, then that is...
Well, because there are people doing that on social media platforms at the moment, taking well-known actors and putting them in scenarios that they were never in.
No, I don't like that.
No. But I don't see them making money from that. I don't see the normal public buying that.
No.
We want the human connection. We want the human creativity, don't we?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I really appreciate both of you sharing today. Thank you for sharing on this conversation. And if there has been anyone watching or listening and joining us, we appreciate you for joining us. Thank you both for sharing.
Has this been live?
It's not been live, but we've been recording video and audio.
So the public can hear it.
Not live. I'll put it out in a week or so.
I see. Of course, you said
yes.
If anybody wants to come back.
No, I just like to always say I appreciate the audience. It's just something I kind of tend to wrap this up with. Right. I feel it's something that gratitude and appreciation is something that's worked for me, and I do. If someone takes the time to listen to the work that I'm putting out into the world.
Great. Well, thank you very
much.
much.
Good.
No, thank you very much for sharing.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I look forward to watching your film later today.
Great.
Experience it for the first time.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.